Hey, what's up, people? Today we're going to be making pizza. You can also use this dough recipe for calzones, and I'll do a video on that at a later date. So, the materials you're going to need, you want some measuring spoons, you need a mixing bowl, pizza stone really is a must. This is the Good Cook brand pizza stone. I believe it's a 15-inch. I got this at Walmart like 5 years ago. It is excellent. It heats up pretty fast. What you're going to want to do is preheat it for at least 45 minutes. Disregard the instructions. It says you can only heat it up to 425. I do it on 540 degrees for about 45 minutes. It's excellent. You need it. You're gonna need some parchment paper, and I think that about covers that part of it. You're going to need some Parmesan cheese. I like the block of it. This is Bel Gioioso brand. You can use any brand you want. For your sauce, unless you have your own pizza sauce you like, I'm gonna use crushed tomatoes as a base. These Great Value brand are like 84 cents a can. They're really good. This is Bel Gioioso brand. You got to use fresh mozzarella. Don't use that polio stuff. I'm in the middle of nowhere. We don't really have many Italian delis that make their own fresh mozzarella. But this is really good. You're going to need sugar, garlic powder, iodized salt, King Arthur brand flour. Get the bread flour. Flour makes a huge difference. Cornmeal, you could actually do without it. I like to use it. I'll show you what that's for when we get to that part later on. You can use some rapid rise yeast. It works just fine. Extra virgin olive oil and wheat gluten. You don't always need the wheat gluten. We have crappy water up here in Northeast Pennsylvania. I use the wheat gluten. It adds better consistency to the dough. So let's get started. Okay, I also forgot to mention you're going to need some measuring cups. Really, you could just get away with the 1 cup. So what you're going to do, start with your flour. We're going to add 3 cups of flour. This is going to be enough to make 2 pizzas or 2 monster-sized calzones. That I don't think there's a human being on the planet that could even finish one of them. This is going to give you a real thin crust. It should be able to cover this entire stone perfectly. When you're stretching it out, you're gonna think, hey, this guy's crazy. This isn't enough dough, but it's how you want it. Put this aside, so we might need it again. Now we're gonna add our sugar. And for the sugar, you want about, let's do 1.5, 1/3 teaspoons. Salt, 1.5. Now, you don't have to do this, but I think it gives a great flavor to the dough. Some garlic powder. I don't even really measure it. Let's call it a good tablespoon. Cornmeal's not going in, that's for later. That's to go underneath your pizza before it goes in the oven. Now, a lot of recipes call for a whole packet of this yeast for this amount of dough, and I don't like it. Too much yeast just makes the dough not taste right. So I like to go, oh sorry, that's a tablespoon. I like to go with good full teaspoon, and I gotta open up another packet here. So let's call that half. Get another packet. It's going to take a little bit longer to get the rise you need, but that's fine. You want it to double in size. They have plastic coating. There we go. You want to pretty much seal that up good. I wind up putting some tape on it. Once you open it, you should put it in the fridge. And for the gluten, I'm going to do a nice heaping teaspoon of it for the wheat gluten. It. Now what you're going to do, another thing you'll need, that I forgot to mention, still a learning experience me doing this, guys, is whisk and dry mix all these ingredients. Keep it off the edge. And that's good enough. Now you're going to add 1 1/3 cups of water, just lukewarm. You don't want it too hot because it'll activate the yeast too fast. Past 130, I believe, will kill it. The best thing I found to mix this is a butter knife. Works really good. So we're gonna add our water in. It's always better to go light on the water. You can always add more. It's better than having to keep adding more flour, then you wind up getting too much dough. You want to start dumping it around the edge. And it winds up being about 1 1/3. I kind of like to do even a little bit less to start. You can always add more. And we're just going to take this, mix it up, keep pulling everything away from the edge. It's really not a lot of work. Some people think, oh, you're making your own dough, oh, that's too much, but it's so much cheaper. For $5 worth of ingredients, you're going to get 2 of the best pizzas you ever had. And if you live where I live, you're not going to be able to get anything like this at any pizza joint. Not even close. You mix it, you want to flip it. Flip it in a few times. Get everything that's stuck to the edges. Alright, you get that off the knife, aside, and you knead it. Flip it. Probably gonna need some more water, but there's still a lot of moisture left in the center of this. The idea is to expose it and keep picking up all that flour that's still floating around the bottom there, and not have to add more water if you don't have to. But yeah, that's definitely not gonna be enough water. But you almost never get it on the first shot. I can tell you that. It rarely happens. So take just another trickle. You don't want to pour it in the bottom where that unmixed dough is. You want to wet the dough you've already started to form. Otherwise it makes a mess. Kind of get that mixed in there. And what we're going to do is, once we get this right, we're going to knead this for a few minutes. Then we're going to add our olive oil and then knead it again. And then once you got all that flour and dough off the sides of the bowl, by using the dough ball to kind of clean it off, is we're going to coat this bowl pretty well in olive oil, cover it in saran wrap. You can leave it at warm temperature, or you can do what I do. I got a warmer function in the oven. Put it on low and I just let it sit there. And you want the dough to double in size. And we're going light on the yeast. So it could take 3 hours sometimes, that's fine. In all honesty, the best thing to do is to put it in a coated plastic bag. You coat the inside of a plastic bag with olive oil. You'll let it slow rise in the refrigerator for about 3 days, and that'll give you the best crust. But it comes out really good just doing it the same day, letting it rise at room temperature, or on another warmer also. Okay. And that is just about right there. That's how you want it to look. Actually, you know what? It's a little sticky. Take some flour. It's okay if you have to add a little bit, but you really don't want to have to keep adding too much flour. And you're going to wind up with pizza that's not thin crust pizza. Seen it happen. I had my daughter follow this dough recipe while I was at work one day. So we could have the pizza ready. She had to keep adding flour. And it came out good. We wound up having crust that was thicker than we were used to. It makes it a lot easier to stretch it out. And when that happens, you'll see what I mean later on. This bread flour really has an elasticity to it, and you gotta keep stretching it. One thing to keep in mind, if you're gonna do that slow rise in the refrigerator, you want to leave it out for about 4 hours. Let it come to room temperature first, because it could crack the pizza stone if it's too cold. So we're gonna add to the dough mixture. I don't measure it. It's about a tablespoon. I'm gonna knead it again. And I'll kind of use it to pull what's stuck to the edge of that bowl into the dough mixture. And we're going to knead it real good. I want to try and get any clumps out of it. Flatten it out. Put your knuckles in there real good. About it. That's what you want. So I'm going to take a nice bit of olive oil here. Don't get crazy, but I'd say it's probably a good 2.5 tablespoons. That. Coat the inside of that bowl with it real good. There you go. Alright, I had a little mishap with the paper towel. It's the kind with the side cutter on it. Paper towel, I mean plastic wrap, sorry. So here's what you want to do. You want to... Sorry if I'm being a little bit redundant with this, but sometimes you have a hard time getting a good seal with this stuff, but it's sticks nice to this glass bowl, Pyrex glass bowl. You want to stretch it, turn the edge just like that. Get a nice, good tight seal. And then you're gonna let it sit until it doubles in size. Sometimes it could take an hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes longer, but it needs to double in size. So you can always put it in a warm spot. If you let it sit out for 6 hours, it's not gonna ruin the taste of the dough or anything. Then I'll take you to the next step when it's dinner time. There you have it. That's what it looks like when it's done. Now what I'm going to do is throw the basil leaves on, cut it up, time to eat. I like a lot of basil. Kind of running low. My plant seems to be on its way out. So I got nothing but these little leaves. It's nice to have those big green fresh basil leaves. There you got the colors right there, the Italian flag. Alright, you have it. And what I like to do is pull this parchment paper out of here. You're going to have all of those cornmeal crumbs, so try and keep it folded as you get rid of it. If you've never sliced a pizza pie before, I even have pepperoni out there. It'll take it off. If you never cut a pizza pie, this is how you do it. Start the edge, kind of cook down on it. Chop into it, sort of. Be careful, you don't burn your fingers. Do I need to say I'm not liable? Yes, I'll say I'm not liable for any injuries anybody gets doing this. There you have it. You're all done. Don't forget to like the video, hit that subscribe button, same with notifications, and hope to have another video for you coming up soon. Enjoy. Okay, now I'm going to show you the difficult part. You do not want to use a pizza roller. It absolutely ruins the dough. Just forget about it. It doesn't work. It just flattens it, takes too much of the air out of it, so you're going to have to kind of shape it by hand. I don't throw it up and twirl it in the air, but I'll show you what to do. You do not need a pizza pan. I just basically use this to shape it, know I get it the right size, and sometimes I even just use this to slide it into the oven, but it's going to be on the parchment paper. So what you're going to do is you're going to make the dough, you're going to shape it out, you're going to put it into the pizza stone, put it on top of the pizza stone for about 2.5 minutes. Then you're going to put your toppings on. So I preheat the oven to 540. As soon as I turn that on, I put the stone in on the top shelf. So right now we're going to get going shaping out the dough. So you're going to take a good bit of flour here. And what I did was I already separated the dough into 2 balls. The other one is in the refrigerator. I'm just going to do 1 pie. kind of get it into a ball, get any folds out of it if you can. Kind of helps keep it even when you're going to be flattening it out into that circle. So what you want to do is get it coated good with flour. Notice how I have the pan upside down, and you'll see why it makes it easier to shape it. And if you have any breaks in it, in the edge, you want to kind of fold them in. And it is a little bit easier if you do this. The entire thing is covered good with flour, so it's not really sticky anymore. It's getting nice and dry. And right there is probably good enough. Now, what you're going to do, before we put it on the parchment paper, you want to do this. Go around the edge, kind of start stretching it. But don't hold it too long in one spot because you don't want it tearing it. And it's not going to come out a perfect circle. Eventually, that's the idea, is kind of get it to one. And you start moving faster. Now, see, I got 4 fingers in there. I'm kind of working around. And just keep stretching the whole thing in different areas. Don't pull and hold it on one spot for too long, because it's just going to make a hole in it. And you go around and you squeeze the outside edge flat. And that's about what you have right there. Stretch a little bit, and what you're going to do is you're going to start keeping an eye out for any really thin spots that you can see through. You're not going to patch them just yet. It almost always happens when you're making thin crust pizza like this. You know, it's still real thick in the center, so that means I want to get my hands in there. Kind of do this. Stretching it out, and right there should be good enough. Put it on the parchment paper. I'm going to slide this out of the way. Parchment paper. Now you're going to sprinkle that cornmeal on there. Just a little bit. About that for now. Okay. Now, see there's a hole there. You can kind of try and squeeze dough from one spot to another. Kind of get rid of that thin spot. See how it's starting to bubble up nice in there. And we're going to do our final stretch shape, which is the hardest part of this process, because this is bread flour, and it just has an elasticity to it. So what you're going to do is slide it onto here, still keeping the pizza pan upside down. Grab, hold down the center, and stretch. Stretch. Kind of hold it. shaped a little bit better. And try and keep it centered on that paper. And I'll patch those holes. They might come back. And if you have any spots like this where it's extra on there, now's the time you can kind of peel that off and put it just thin spot there. Thin spot there. Now as your hands kind of warm it up, see what happens. It gets easier to shape now. It doesn't look like this is going to be enough when you're first doing this, but trust me, it is. Thicker down this side here. Take that, patch that there. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to cover this whole pizza pan. So basically you're cutting out a square of that parchment paper, and it's just going to go from edge to edge. It hangs over a little bit. One spot. What I'll do is I'll stretching it like right here. Here's what I'm going to do. That way it doesn't stick, because if the dough touches the pizza stone sometimes when it's hot, and you go to slide it on there, it'll catch it and it'll stick to it. So what I'm going to do is just dampen this a little bit. And we'll slide it right under there. Just like that. Alright. Let's see. A spot there. You really don't want any holes in it. Now, fold up our edge of the crust here. About a ½ inch. I want to try and seal it down good. What I do is I try and pull it over the edge here, and then let it like spring back. So you're not actually really losing any. And you could also do it heavier, this, and like double roll it if you want a nice puffy crust. It's gonna rise up, but doesn't have to be perfect. That's just about gonna cover the stone. Now, I'm going to throw it in. I usually do about 2 minutes, 20 seconds. You want to have your cheese ready, everything ready to go when you take this out. Be careful, when it's preheated to 540 like that, that air is going to come out hot. right? And let it hang over a little bit. Go right to the back of it. Kind of hold it. It's tricky. You could use, I forget what the hell they're called, wooden things. I have them. I don't always use them. Try and center it on there. Be careful. In. Start that timer. Good to go. Alright, you'll see there's some little brown spots. You got some bubbles in there. They'll settle down. That's okay. I like the taste of those. They're nice and extra crispy. I ground up the Parmesan cheese. You really don't need this much. You could go with about a half a cup. I like a lot of it. For the mozzarella, you're going to cut it into thick slices, unless you have the kind that's already sliced. It's damn near a half-inch thick. And I'll show you what I do. You're going to use not quite a half a pound. I want to say it's maybe 3/8 of a pound. Toppings, you can put whatever you want. I personally think if the pizza's good, you don't need toppings. I like a little bit of thin sliced pepperoni on mine, which I'll be putting on half of it, because my daughter doesn't eat it. Alright, and you're going to go kind of light with the sauce. You don't spread it on too thick. There's also no tomato paste in this. When you have that pizza stone and you pre-cook that crust, it's not going to make it soggy. It's going to stay nice and crispy. First thing you're going to do before you put any toppings on it, you got some extra virgin olive oil here. It's going to have a light coating. Get that edge of the crust. And just a very thin coating on the rest of it. Really thin. Alright, now you're going to take your sauce. As far as measurement, I really don't know, to be honest with you. But you'll see how I do it. And I like to use a spoon with some holes in it. That way you just get a lot of the chunks, and some of the real thin stuff will drip through. So here's how I do it. And then I'm going to put some on top of the cheese too, just a little bit. Well, it depends how you like your pizza too, I guess, but I don't like a whole lot of sauce. Same thing with the cheese. This is more like a margherita pie. So you're not going to have the entire pie completely covered with cheese. Except for the Parmesan. I spread that on nice and even. But you can also use Asiago, is good too. Right there's pretty much what you want. Now I'm going to take some of this Parmesan cheese. Adds a nice flavor. Put some on top also, after I put the fresh mozzarella on. This little part right here is from the whole pound of the Bel Gioioso that's already sliced. And you see how thick these are? It's kind of how you want it. Just going sporadic with it. This, that cut. to match those slices. Come in that package. I'm going to go with chunks instead of an even layer. See, that's about it. What I'm gonna do is just a little bit more sauce. Flatten it on there a little bit. I'm going to take the rest of that cheese, Parmesan, sprinkle it on there. If you put too much of the mozzarella cheese, it's going to become real heavy, and it will soften up that crust and make it a little bit on the soggy side if you go overboard with it. Especially if you use the fresh made, like an Italian deli, it seems to have a higher water content. Water, I say water. Get used to it. 25 years out of New York, and I still say it. And I'm going to take my pepperoni. Yeah. Keep in mind too, if you're gonna do make 2 pies at once, unless you have 2 pizza stones in, what you're gonna have to do is finish that first pie, and then just let the stone go again for about a good 10 minutes. Otherwise, it's gonna lose some of its heat, and it really won't do its job. So that's about half. Okay. We're gonna put the basil leaves on once it's out of the oven and done. But now this is something extra I do. I just sprinkle a little tiny bit of garlic powder on it. And since this mozzarella has very little salt in it, and I don't add salt to the sauce, I add just a fine layer of salt too. And that is it. So, I'm going to slide this back into the oven. And it's going to be a little bit trickier than the first time because the dough is partially cooked now. Sometimes it likes to slide off of the parchment paper. You want to kind of see if you can grab the pizza also. So you just did it. Grab the edge of it, pull like that, and you're good to go. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to put it in for about 6 minutes. This is another important step. Put it in for 6 minutes, or until the crust is kind of a golden brown. Then you're going to shut the oven off and leave it in to finish it off. That way, the crust, the bottom of the crust will cook nice, and the cheese will slow down from the oven temperature lowering, so it's not going to burn. And I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished. Alright, it's been 6 minutes. And see, it's starting to get that golden color. The cheese is melted, but it's not really like bubbling, browning yet. So that's perfect. So I'm going to shut the oven off now. Going to time it for another 3 minutes and should be done. There you have it. That's what it looks like when it's done. Now what I'm going to do is throw the basil leaves on, cut it up, time to eat. I like a lot of basil. Kind of running low. My plant seems to be on its way out. So I got nothing but these little leaves. It's nice to have those big green fresh basil leaves. There you got the colors right there, the Italian flag. Alright, you have it. And what I like to do is pull this parchment paper out of here. You're going to have all of those cornmeal crumbs, so try and keep it folded as you get rid of it. If you've never sliced a pizza pie before, I got even that pepperoni out there. I'll take it off. If you never cut a pizza pie, this is how you do it. Start the edge, kind of push down on it. Chop into it, sort of. Be careful, you don't burn your fingers. Do I need to say I'm not liable? Yes, I'll say I'm not liable for any injuries anybody gets doing this. There you have it. You're all done. Don't forget, like the video, hit that subscribe button, same notifications, and hope to have another video for you coming up soon. Enjoy.